Our top story, the Ontario Federation of Labour and union leaders are speaking to the media at Queen's Park after yesterday's court victory over Bill 124. Let's listen in.
Because we understand the importance of standing up for workers' rights. And we especially understand the importance of coming together across the labour movement to protect the right to free and fair collective bargaining. Our coalition spanned public and private sector unions, associations, and federations. We came together to say enough is enough. We will not take this blatant attack on our rights and freedoms. Bill 124 has had devastating impacts. It disproportionately impacted women, like the childcare workers demonstrating at Queen's Park today on the National Day of Action for Childcare. They are amongst the frontline workers who have repeatedly been asked to do more with less over the past few years. Bill 124 worsened the crisis in healthcare and attacked our public services and those that deliver them across the board in many other sectors. By suppressing wages and limiting or denying frontline workers the supports they need to do their jobs without burning out or becoming completely demoralized. The Ford government made a terrible situation even worse with Bill 124. Now we expect the Ford government to do what is right and uphold this decision. This victory proves once again that when workers unite to challenge injustice, we win. We know our work is not over, and we will continue to stand up for workers in the face of Ford's attacks. We will take them on at every turn and win. Next, I'd like to welcome Fred Hahn, President of CUPE Ontario.
Thanks so much, Patty. My name is Fred Hahn. I'm the president of CUPE Ontario, and we represent proudly 280,000 public sector workers across the province. I want to thank the OFL for organizing today's event, but also for helping to organize the coalition of so many unions and associations that were part of this important challenge. Today is about being clear. This is a full vindication for so many workers who understood just felt it in their gut, that Bill 124 was wrong, that it violated rights that are protected by the Constitution of our country. I'm here today to talk a little bit about Justin Conan's decision to fully overturn Bill 124. And it's important, as Patty mentioned, that it's happening on the National Day for Childcare, because one of the key demands of childcare workers is about a workforce strategy that pays childcare workers for the important work they do. All of these workers have been held back by Bill 124, as have workers in developmental services like Frederica Pottinger, who was here with me in June, and university workers like Alan James, who represents custodial maintenance workers at the University of Toronto, also here with me in June. We know about healthcare workers. Lisa Barker, an RPN, was here with me also to talk about Bill 124, and they represent so many others. Mental health and addictions workers, housing and support and shelter workers, education workers, so many impacted by this legislation. It's clear that this justice's decision is a thorough, thoughtful, and carefully argued decision. It is clear in saying that there is no defense for having passed this legislation that infringes upon the rights of workers. So, our message today is really one to the Ford Conservatives. Now is the time to think very hard about your next step. Now is not the time for appeal. Now is the time for redress. Read the room. Understand that the people of the province of Ontario want and expect a government in our province to respect workers' rights. They want and expect healthcare workers, childcare workers, workers across the broader public sector to make wages that allow them to raise their families with respect. They expect there to be a system where there is free and fair collective bargaining, where workers have access to their voice and where they can make those demands known to their employers and reach agreements at local bargaining tables. Bill 124 removed all of that in so many ways, and it made difficult days worse. Another important feature of this decision is that the judge says he only takes into account the day the bill was passed and the circumstances on that day. But so much has happened since then. We've been through a brutal global pandemic. We've seen the impacts that that's had in our healthcare system, throughout social services, throughout the broader public sector, in our schools. We have inflation raging. Now is the time for the government to recognize that we need to turn a corner. So we strongly, strongly recommend against even considering appealing this legislation. This was harmful to workers, harmful to public services that our communities rely on, violated the Constitution of our country. Now is the time to move forward and to recognize that we have much work to do in Ontario. The focus should not be on using public money to continue to fight workers, rather to invest and make the public services people rely on stronger by supporting the people who do that important work. Thanks.
Thank you, Fred. Next, we'll hear from Bernie Robinson, Interim President of the Ontario Nurses Association.
Good morning, everyone. My name is Bernie Robinson. I am a registered nurse, and I am the interim president of the Ontario Nurses Association. I join many Labour partners here to celebrate an amazing victory for all workers. It is a true triumph for nurses, healthcare professionals, personal support workers, teachers, education workers, and so many more who have been so unfairly attacked by Bill 124. From day one, ONA knew this bill was wrong. We knew this bill was unconstitutional, and we knew we could fight it in court. We have won. This has been a long 3-year battle. It's been fought in the courts, in our workplaces, in our communities, and on the street. We have gathered together on multiple occasions in front of MPP offices. We asked repeatedly for collaboration. Yet they would not come out and speak, nor would they do the right thing and repeal this bill. It's now time to put an end to this fight. Ontario's nurses and healthcare professionals are demanding that the Premier Ford and his government accepts the court's decision and does not appeal. It is time to stop wasting the taxpayer dollars fighting nurses, healthcare professionals, and other public sector workers in court. To stop targeting women and the professions where they work. Stop making healthcare and the staffing crisis worse. The judge's ruling is clear. Bill 124 interferes with the charter right to collectively bargain and interferes with the charter right to association. Enough is enough. The court has ruled, and we demand that the Ford government stops attacking workers. On behalf of our 68,000 ONA members and 18,000 nursing students, we demand this government respects our charter rights. It is time to get back to fair wages and free and fair collective bargaining. That is our right. It's a right that ONA's nurses and healthcare professionals will never stop defending. Thank you.
Thank you, Bernie. And now I'll call on Karen Littlewood, President of the Ontario Secondary School Teachers Federation.
Thank you, Patty. Void and of no effect. Substantial interference with collective bargaining. A violation of freedom of association. Those are just some of the words that rang out yesterday as Justice Cohen and the Ontario Superior Court of Justice declared Bill 124 unconstitutional. Workers across the province celebrated as their most basic and fundamental rights were upheld. The ruling was highly welcomed but not at all surprising for those of us in labor and the workers we represent. We knew all along that Bill 124 was unjust and a clear violation of the right to free and fair collective bargaining. Public sector workers have been facing threats to their rights far too often under this heavy-handed government. I am proud to represent the more than 60,000 education workers and teachers who make up the Ontario Secondary School Teachers Federation. These are the people that keep Ontario's schools open, all of the workers in education. We make them schools safe and clean. We deliver quality public education to millions of students every day in this province. They should be celebrated. These workers need to be celebrated for what they do, and instead, their rights are continually under attack with this government. I call on the Premier and his government to accept this court decision, to work with us, not against us, and to commit to free and fair collective bargaining for all workers, including our public education system. Investing in Ontario's public services is one of the smartest investments we can make, one of the most critical for Ontario's future success and well-being. On behalf of OSSTF FASO members, I want to say how proud we were to work alongside many public sector allies in the fight against Bill 124, including all the leaders I stand with here today and many across the province. We will continue to stand up and defend the most essential rights of our members and of workers everywhere. Thank you.
Thank you, Karen. And now we'll open it up to questions.
So, what happens now? The government has said it does plan to appeal. This is going to the Supreme Court, and we're going to have this all over again. How are you guys going to collaborate on a Supreme Court appeal?
As we've done all throughout this challenge, is we've worked together, we've communicated, our lawyers have worked together. We've had, the OFL's had a very large coalition, and we're hoping that Doug Ford decides not to appeal. But if he does, we're ready, and we'll move forward with the appeal.
Are you worried at all that the government may try to do what it did with with QP before and try to pass a retroactive Bill 124 using the notwithstanding clause?
Does anyone else want to answer? I mean,
happy.
Yeah, go ahead, Fred.
I think that we can all appreciate that it would be a deep mistake for the Ford Conservatives to repeat the mistake they made just a few weeks ago in trying to employ the notwithstanding clause. I think the people of the province, not just education workers who are, of course, leading that fight, but parents and community members and members of other unions in the private sector and the public sector, everyone agreed. This was a massive overreach and unnecessary. Just as it would be unnecessary to spend public money to continue to fight workers in an appeal, but if that's the choice that the Ford Conservatives make, it is a choice they'll have to live with. And it is one that we will continue to meet in terms, because the rights of workers are simply too important to not fight for.
Thank you, Fred. Any other questions?
So let's talk about what happens now in terms of recovering some of the money that was not paid due to the wage cap. We've had the FAO come out and say that the getting retroactive back pay and bigger increases from the past 3 years could be quite expensive. I think the number came around a few $1 billion. What is the plan? Are you going to take them to court to try to get retroactive back pay? Is there going to be labor negotiations about new higher wage increases? Like what are you looking for, and how are you going to get it?
So I'll speak just in general, and then I'll pass it on to our affiliates here. So in general, it'll be up to each union, each local, each federation or association to determine that, depending on where they are on the bargaining spectrum and what's in their collective agreement, if they have an opening clause or not. But I will turn it over to who would like to speak. Karen Brown, go ahead.
Hi, Karen Brown from ETFO. You mentioned the issue in regards to the cost for retro pay and the billions. Workers in this province have lost extensive amount of money due to that infringement of their right, and that should have been taken into consideration by this government. And this is something that our workers are entitled to, and we will fight to ensure that they get that fair and just compensation. And I think the government needs to take considerations when it's making these decisions to override the right of workers to bargain fairly to get a decent wage and a decent increase. And this decision brings justification to that, and we will exercise. As far as ETFO, as you've heard, other affiliates will have conversations on the best mechanisms to address this for our members. And what you've heard clearly from Fred and others is that this government needs to move forward from this. This is not worth spending more of taxpayers' dollars to challenge this. This is a fair decision, and we need to move forward.
All right, labor leaders, union leaders from OFL, CUPE, ETFO, ONA, SEIU, and others gathering for a press conference today at Queen's Park to discuss the Ontario Superior Court's decision yesterday to strike down Bill 124 in its entirety on the basis that it violated the constitutional rights to collective bargain and to strike.